Thank you very much for having me here, for accepting me, for recognizing me. I want to thank ACTA for doing just that. I want to thank the people who inspired me to do what I did. A prominent one is sitting right in front of me enjoying his couscous. I want to thank my supportive family and friends, but there is a group of people that I need to thank the most. My haters. I wouldn't be here without them. None of this would be happening. You wouldn't know my name. They are very much the cause to this effect. So I would be remiss not to thank them most prominently. So that's what I'm going to do. So my heart wells up with joy when I think about them, really. You know, I love them more than they love themselves. So why would I even come about this attitude? Where did I get it from? Two very interesting sources, really. Buddhism and Michael Jordan. I'll start with Buddhism. I encountered a lay Buddhist organization that has a very interesting response to crisis. Whenever you tell them something like, my car got rear-ended, or my wife is leaving me, or something like that, they look at you, they smile ear to ear, and they say, congratulations. Why do they do that? Well, that crisis gives you an opportunity to grow. It gives you an opportunity to innovate, to become somebody you would not have become otherwise. So that's the lesson there. Michael Jordan, who also gave a speech accepting an award in which he thanked his haters too. But that's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is the 90s powerhouse that was the Chicago Bulls. And every time they played a team coached by George Karl would, during the pregame speech, downplay Michael Jordan's talents, call him overrated. He did this more than once. He did it during the NBA Finals. He never learned his lesson because Michael Jordan would always drop at least 60 points every time he did this. So what's the lesson there? Right? You channel things into energy, into power, into motivation. A student just yesterday told me that haters are motivators. As far as I'm concerned, truer words have never been spoken. But really, what I want to do today is tell you what came out of these unfortunate incidents that Stephen just told you about, right? From my haters, right? No, let's call them George Karls. No, Karls. Let's call them Karls. I'm sick of calling them woke and all that stuff, and let it not be lost on you that Karl is the name of the founder of Marxism. I think we're on to something, aren't we? They're Karls now. They're not Marxists. They're Karls. Keep that going. All right? All right. Good. So, what came out of this? Several things. First of all, I channeled that anger, really, that's what it was, into writing, op-eds, wherever I could. I channeled it into going on podcasts whenever I could. I did not know the meaning of no. I said yes to everything. I had to get it out there. I had to expose what was going on in my field for what it was. I believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So I wanted to do just that. 2 books came out of this in the last 3 years. This happened in 2019, right? So I was that angry, you know, that I pumped out 2 books. One was going to be something a little different. It wasn't going to be a critique of anti-racism in rhetoric and composition. But with 3 months left till the deadline, I decided to change things up a little bit because of that listserv incident. So I have to thank my Karls for making me such a prolific writer. I do. But there are other organizations that came out of this as well. One was already mentioned, Free Black Thought. This is an organization that tries to showcase viewpoint diversity within Black America. The Black academics, writers, artists, podcast hosts, things like that. We are not a monolith. That seems obvious to me. It's probably obvious to many of you, but it's not obvious to enough people. It doesn't seem very obvious to my colleagues in my field. So I and some other people got together and created a website, an organization, a 501c3 as a matter of fact, and we have a compendium on this website that features a variety of authors, writers, poets, what have you, that you wouldn't know about through mainstream media, right? They don't really get a platform, so we are giving them a platform. So we have a very vast compendium of all these artists and thinkers. We also have a journal of free black thought. Dr. Laurie was kind enough to write the first ever essay we published, right? So we were off to a very good start, right? And none of this would have happened if it wasn't for my group of corals. But I do want to say this. At first, when all that was happening, it was quite a lonely experience. My finger did hover over the send button before I did it, but I did do it, and I felt quite alone. I wasn't getting much support. I was getting a lot of vitriol from people who I thought were my friends. It was a lonely experience. But then I met the guys and girls at Free Black Thought, and I felt alone no more. I found camaraderie. I found a group that understood what I was doing and believed in it as much as I did, and enough to put something out there to get the point across. I am forever thankful to them. I don't tell them that enough. I hope they see this or something, because you know how guys are. I can't be like, I love you. But I do love them very much, and I'm forever grateful for that too. And my haters brought us together. I have to thank them. One of the members of Free Black Thought decided to create his own 501c3 and invited me on board. This is Jason Littlefield. He also invited Jennifer Richmond, who's worked with Counterweight and Moral Courage. And we have put together an organization called Empowered Pathways. So what is this? It is an alternative to the current DEI trainings we've been talking about all day, right? One that does not dismiss classical liberal values, but embraces them. It embraces pragmatism. It embraces empowerment theory. And obviously, it embraces rhetoric. The confluence of these things, they kind of create a three-pronged way of looking at the world in general, not just the world as a place where diversity, equity, and inclusion is an emphasized value. It talks about self-awareness, intrapersonal empowerment, not going into a situation with ready-made ideas, projecting them on the people you don't know based on how they look. I thought we were past that. We are not. It also talks about collaboration, right? Working together on what are called superordinate goals, goals that disparate groups can have in common, and goals that they cannot achieve without one another, right? So we want to focus on these things when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're not seeing that very much these days. We're seeing a lot of blame, a lot of victimhood. I want victimhood to become an antiquated term, right? That's what I want. I want you to look in the dictionary and say, oh, this word used to be here, but now we say empowered and winner and stuff like that. That's what I want to see. And that's what Jason and Jennifer want to see as well. So we've been working with some school districts around the country. We've been doing talks at conferences, and we do want to start a curriculum, online courses, to help people, get a healthy alternative to what's being forced down their throats, right? Yeah, you can clap for it, yeah. Next, I want to talk about the people I found behind enemy lines. Those other voices in my field who didn't feel like they could speak up at the time for understandable reasons. They have precarious positions in the academy. They're not tenured, or they're not even on the tenure track. They can't speak up the way I can. So I found them and created a community with them as well. Heterodox Academy has a set of cohorts for anthropology, for history, poli-sci. They have one for rhetoric and composition. for which I am the moderator. This is also a community that makes me feel like I'm not alone, and it makes people feel like they do actually have a voice and that people are listening. So we're a bit of an enclaved public right now, but we are a public nonetheless. We are inspired by the likes of Jonathan Haidt, John McWhorter, as well as John Stuart Mill and John Locke. I would refer to them as the Johns, but that has very different connotations. Can't really do that. But you know what I'm getting at here. You know how we're inspired. And we're working on something to salvage what is left of rhetoric and composition in academia. It's more accurate to call it woke studies these days, and I wish that were a joke. It is not. For example, this week, a book came out called Violence in the Work of Composition. So it's talking about the inherent violence of teaching certain ways of writing to students of color. And it's not just teaching black students standard English. It's not just about that. It's about genre conventions. I only had time to read one page. I just got it in the mail. So it's in a hotel room. So I only had time to read one page, and it is dripping with wokeness. Apparently, expecting a student to write a thesis statement is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. It's not a joke. You got to read this book, or at least the page I read. There is a document that came out a couple of weeks ago about anti-racist reviewing practices for accepting articles for journals, book chapters, and things like that. And it is prominently based in the work of Ibram X. Kendi. They tell you that. It's the first paragraph, right? And it's a very long paragraph. They love Kendi. So if you want to get published, you better cite somebody of color, even if that person has little to do with the content of your essay. That's also not a joke. I'm sure there's some others here. There are tons, actually. I'm just too depressed to talk about them. Well, I guess I can leave it at that. No, I'll give you one more. The person who talked about a mic drop, well, he proudly announced during a conference that black students who wanted to learn standard English and not use their authentic voices were being selfish and immature because they wanted to acquire a skill that would help them succeed in this system, and this system is bad. So why would they want to do that? They're part of the problem. I'm not exaggerating. So this is what I'm dealing with here in my field. And this is what we're dealing with in the heterodox rhetoric and composition cohort. We're doing our best to put things out there, schedule events, curriculum, a curriculum that actually talks about rhetoric, right? Persuasion, and doesn't demonize rhetoric as inherently violent because you have to cater to an audience as opposed to saying something like, I am black, hear me roar, right? So all these things are happening, and all these things have come out of me dealing with these corals. So I am thankful. The last thing I want to talk about, the last thing the corals gave to me, was the ability to practice what I preach. I tell my students as often as possible, they're probably sick of it, do not be afraid of conflict. Run toward it. It can cause innovation. It can make you grow in ways you never thought possible. It can enhance your ability to adapt to rough situations. And it can make you anti-fragile. And what I mean by that is you don't just fortify yourself, you make yourself better. The crisis makes you better. The crisis makes the situation better. The crisis makes your workplace better, your family, academia. Run toward it. Seek the crises. And the corals allowed me the ability to model that. I didn't have that before. I just talked about how great of an idea it was. Now I can show them why it's a great idea. How, if you run towards the conflict, you can write several articles and 2 books in the blink of an eye. You can create these associations, which is what America's all about, right? creating associations, individuals coming together under similar goals and working together to achieve those goals, superordinate goals. That's what it's all about. And I wouldn't have that, again, if it wasn't for my haters. So I sincerely thank them for what they're doing. I thank them for pushing me not to drown under their weight, but to rise like a phoenix from the dumpster fire that is critical social justice and do something good about it. It's all because of them. So sincerely, what I leave to you right now is that big lesson, right? Anger isn't bad. Unproductive anger is bad. Anger is energy. You can channel that into whatever you need to channel it into. Saving your workplace, saving academia, saving K through 12 education, right? It's there. Use it. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Smile, right? Get yourself a hater, all right? It will do wonders for your life, honestly. I mean, it's been a while since they attacked me. I'm kind of getting upset about it. I want to, where are they? I need my, you know about Calliope and the other muses. Carls are my muses. They're, and I'm serious about that. Inspiration. Thy name is Carl. I guess I can wrap things up right now, and, well, you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. There's no such thing as a bad crisis in a sense. We should never let a crisis go to waste. But ultimately, I want you to remember this. Do not let the Carls grind you down. I guess I'm done. Yeah.